It is February 2024, and this is our second episode of our 50 for 50 podcast. This month, we are looking at a really pivotal moment in our church's history from 2005 when we made the decision to stay here at 1910 Sycamore View Road instead of moving out further into the suburbs. That decision has really shaped our church and how we are working in the community and in our surrounding area. So I really think this will be a great conversation for us to look back on. I encourage you to check out the video of Bailey Jones. She was 8 years old when that decision was made and remembers that moment and that day of celebrating that decision. So I encourage you to check it out and listen to her perspective. We're going to have a different perspective here on the podcast today from somebody that was on staff at the time and was on staff for many years as our outreach minister, and that is Mark Taylor. Everybody loves Mark and his family, and we recorded this interview with Mark before the tragic news of the death of his son, Tyler, on Tuesday, January 30th. So I encourage you to reach out to Mark, keep him and his family in your prayers, to Tyler's wife, Jessie, and to Mark and Stephanie, Kyle and Cindy, and the rest of their family and friends. We hold you close in prayer over the coming weeks. And I think everybody will really enjoy this conversation with Mark. We talked to him about whether he still wanted us to drop this podcast, and he said, of course. So I think that his perspective and his thoughts will be really great in this conversation. And I just encourage you to keep his family close in your prayers during this time. And I hope you enjoy our podcast. The man, the myth, the legend, Mark Taylor. Hi, Mark.
Hey, guys. I don't know about that.
You are quite a legend around Sycamore View. Can you tell us when you started working on staff here?
You know, that is, when people start talking about when they started to work somewhere, it's kind of tragic in a way that I can remember the day I started, because it was the day before the terrorists hit on 9/11.
Yeah, 2001.
So, September the 10th. I woke up that morning and I drove to work, and they didn't really have a lot of stuff lined out for me to do. I was on staff as the new involvement minister / community outreach.
Okay.
And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't have an office. Yeah. I didn't have anywhere to sit. And so I just kind of hung around that day. But it was September the 10th. And the very next day, I had a printed prayer list with me. And I said, I'm going to go straight to the hospitals. That's what I'll do. And when I got to the hospital, I was visiting one of our elders at the time, Alan Dixon, who had broken his hip, falling off a bicycle riding with his granddaughter. And we saw the second plane hit in the hospital. So me being involvement guy in community, we immediately jumped in. So my second day on the job, we were hosting people from all over the world from the airport that were stuck here.
Stuck here for days.
Yeah, domestic flights were stuck for 7 days, international for 2 weeks. So the people that we housed from Brazil, China, I can't remember the other countries. I think it was about 10.
Wow.
Germany, couples coming back from their honeymoon on their last dime.
Oh, wow.
We washed their clothes. I think they stayed with the Davenports. They were cat people, so they all got along. The lady from China stayed with the Godleys. There were other people that hosted them. We took them on tours of Graceland.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay,
here's
here's my
job.
God, what do you want me to do?
Set. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
So September the 10th.
Wow. 2001. Okay. And now you are fully retired.
Yeah, but as we were discussing, it's a word.
Yeah.
I'm just as busy now as ever before, but I had a great career. I was here 18 years. I had my own business before that. I had worked in mechanical contracting for almost 20 years. And so I've had a great career. So we have December 22nd.
Yeah.
I officially hung it up, and then Stephanie handed me the list.
The honeydew list.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one question about the Taylor Cafe. What's been a favorite meal you've made recently? Because you're also quite the chef.
Well, my wife is I just researched a lot of that stuff online
Yeah.
about how to cook stuff. I have a big outdoor kitchen,
Yeah.
and we live in a nice outdoor space. So when it's really nice, I live out there. I guess one of my favorites, when I left my last job of 4 years, I fed the entire staff, about 100 people. Injected Cajun chicken.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sounds good. This maybe should be a food podcast next.
I've been on a couple, and they are fun.
I bet.
But Cajun butter injected and cooked over pecan, and they're amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Good
We
stuff.
love to entertain that people out.
Yes, you and Stephanie are great at that.
Thank you.
So you were here for about 4 years when we hit the 2005 decision about, do we stay and really invest in our location here, or do we move out further kind of into the suburbs,
Yep.
which some other churches were also debating.
A lot of people moved off of Houston Levee.
Yeah, lots of things in the neighborhood were kind of changing. So can you kind of tell us about what were those changes and what was it like in 2005 here?
You know, what was interesting is I don't remember any strategic meetings per se that, okay, tonight, guys, we're going to discuss whether or not we're going to leave.
Yeah.
So everybody come in with your thinking hats on and give us your best ideas. I remember there was this undertow, and I'm not saying that it's negative.
Yeah.
There was just this undertow of folks talking like, hey, is it time for us to do what some of the other big churches and medium-sized churches are doing? And like I said, Houston Levee was nothing. And then all these churches, I'm talking from left to right, depending on which way you were going there, either side. You just saw all these churches popping up, big churches. And I think that some people were thinking, hey, maybe we should do that. So there was some discussion. I think there was also some people that were maybe like the, I don't know, they thought, well, why are they moving? Why don't they stay in their community? And it almost came across like that. Well, how come you go to church camp? You know, and then you feel like you're better than somebody else. And I heard some of that. But we couldn't judge them. Some of the churches were landlocked. They couldn't expand. They couldn't do some of the things they wanted to do. So they went out there for a reason. So who were we to judge? But it started conversations. And I remember being in meetings where those discussions came up, but I never ever heard anyone strongly say we should move. It was always, well, why would we move?
Yeah.
We should really stay here. And it all seemed to just stay that way.
Yeah.
There was a strong opinion that we should stay where we are and be a part of our community because we had built such a strong foundation here. Let's continue to build on it. Whatever that may be, God will show us. But we need to stay here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember those discussions, but I never really thought there was unless there was some behind the scenes stuff that I wasn't a part of, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that undertow, how strong that was. Because every meeting I was in, it was like, well, we're staying here.
We're staying here. Yeah.
How's that going to look? What should we do as we continue forward?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing is, okay, we're staying. What does that mean? Because our community is changing around us. And we want to make sure that if we stay, we really are engaging in the community, which was a big part of your job description.
Yes, it was.
At the time. So how did that shape what you decided to do with community outreach?
I was happy. I was so happy. Let me tell you why. They gave me a job description, and companies and churches and organizations have gotten so much better about job descriptions. Some of them are actually overwhelming. You want me to do all of that? That's 5 people's jobs. In fact, I took the job description that they gave me when they offered or were talking about my job, and I took it to other ministers from other faiths in the community. They said, Mark, you can't do all that. That's a lot of work. And I said, yes, I can. But then I see what they were saying because it was a lot of work. Because when we started moving more towards the community, my job from involvement really, there was always this fine line. I would sit in my office and say, okay, today I'm doing this. how much of this is involvement and how much of this is community. I tried to split it up. But then I realized it all came together. But it started with the shift from the community. When Terry Miller came up to me shortly after I was hired and said, we adopted Shelby Oaks, but there's nothing really official about it. But you may want to go introduce yourself down there. And
Which is our elementary school
around
the corner.
Yeah. At the time, it was the third largest in the city. They had a 6th grade. The enrollment was 1,000 kids. So it was a big deal. And we were, on paper, the church that adopted them. I think also with Pfizer, a local bank, Bank of Bartlett, and they had been kind of silent.
Yeah.
And we had too. And so I went down there one day and met the principal, Dr. Pete Johnson, and he and I became very, very good friends. And just a few days into our friendship, one of the families got burned out of their apartment, and he said, "Let's go." So we jumped in my truck, and I thought, he likes trucks. He's my kind of guy. We can get along. And we went and we visited this family and went to the site where they had lost everything.
Wow.
And it was right then, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be a part of a school that's in our neighborhood that has the same desires we have to take care of people. And we became partners. Shortly after that, he moved to Grandwood, which is right up the road. And Dr. Catherine Deasy came in. She was a hard nut to crack. Her words, not mine.
Yeah.
Lady from Chicago who was kind of kept her feelings to herself. Pete was totally different. And so I had to adjust. And she had to adjust to me, but we became really good friends.
Yes.
And the partnership with them grew. As you know, you're very much a part of it now. But it all started really with a visit.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about just building those relationships.
Thank you. I've thought that over and over and over. There were many, many times I would be driving to work, and I wouldn't come straight here.
Yeah.
I would just pull into Shelby Oaks, and I would help them at the front desk for the tardy folks. I made announcements a few times on the intercom. I never wore a badge. I just walked around. That's just Mr. Mark. And I thought, I felt like a part of the staff.
Yeah, that's really neat.
People would come to me and say, "Hey, will you pray for me over this?" I became like their pastor, the church representative for that group of people, which was like a small city. I called the Catherine a governor of a small city. If you have that many kids in the staff, there's something going on all the time.
Yeah. Well, it really seems like the decision to stay and invest, I think of our schools, and I think of Boys and Girls Club, and just a lot of the other stories that are going to come up over this whole 50 for 50 experience that really come back to our location and really just saying we're all in on 1910 Sycamore View Road, and we're going to really invest in this community. And there was a Sunday in 2005 where they drove stakes into the ground in the shape of a cross. It's one of those Sundays that I was not here for. I was in high school in Dallas, Texas.
Where were you when I started this job?
I was in like 6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, 7th grade in Dallas. Yeah.
And I was going to ask our Caroline.
Oh, yeah. Caroline's in here with us.
So 2001, where were you?
I was 2 years old.
2 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not making you feel old here or anything.
I did think about that driving in this morning.
But that Sunday, I feel like I was here for it because I've just heard people talk about it so much of how powerful that experience was for our whole church to have a moment of saying, this is where we are, this is where we're staying, we're going to invest. What was that Sunday like for you? Do you have many memories of that day?
We don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Because that was a big day for me. I do remember that we would often, if we were staff members, we would have to go toe-to-toe with the budget people because of our money. And I got in trouble because, which is not like me because I'm a rule follower. I'm not rogue at all. But I got in trouble with the budget guys because I went and bought a nice camera. For the church, and it had video and it had still pictures, and it was like the best that you could get at the time. And they said, well, you could have got one for half the cost, and I went toe to toe with them. But I used that camera, and if you go back into all the archives of the pictures for the 18 years I was here, I took all those. So
Okay.
we went back to floppy disks. The first
Yeah.
camera I had, you put a full disc in there, maybe took 6 pictures.
Yeah. That's the save icon. That's how younger people know what a floppy disk is. It's the save icon.
And I've got some old floppy disks. I don't even have, I guess I need to buy a reader for them. I took so many pictures that day. So the ones that you see,
Yeah.
I took all those.
That's really neat because the story of Bailey, she's like
I took
this
that
little
picture.
girl and her dad Chuck is with her as they drive the stakes into the ground.
Yeah,
And that's going to be in the video. You took that picture.
I took that picture. And
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
some of the cool pictures that you see from above, I was on top of the gym.
Wow.
So I went up the catwalk. And I went
Let's
over,
not tell kids how to get up there.
hey, y'all call me. So I would go up there a lot and take pictures of events from the roof. Now that you can do a drone or whatever. But I remember looking up there, it was a beautiful Sunday, picture perfect. We had the builders here. We prayed over them. Don Litton, one of our elders at the time, prayed over. He was intricate in helping with the construction. He did that with the Navy base. And so he had dealings with contractors. He was the perfect liaison from us to them. He was on stage with Chris Wood's company, prayed over the father and the son of the company and the superintendent. And then we all had a basket with all those little red ribbons tied around them with the stakes. And we had children passing them out. And they would all go out with their families to the yard after our service, and we drove stakes in the ground. We had gone out there earlier and measured it. Me and another guy, I think may have been Reggie Crawford, but maybe Brian, maybe Carolyn. There was a few guys that went out there. We all measured and took spray paint and made the big cross so we would know where to drive them. And it was moving. And I would go back and look at those pictures and think, we literally drove a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
You know, I always thought about that with Moses, and to drive a stake in the ground and see just how far that they had gone. If you just keep walking, there's no perspective. But if you drive a stake in the ground, you can look back and see how far you are from that stake. We drove a stake in the ground that day, and we can look back and see how far God has brought us. It's amazing. And, you know, a lot of times you don't realize it when you're doing it. You're in the moment.
Yeah.
Like Bailey was doing that with Chuck. It's like she's just driving a stake around with her dad.
Yeah.
But now as an adult woman, she looks back and goes, wow, it's cool.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah.
Really,
Get
really
me all
powerful.
emotional. Thank you.
I know. Yeah.
Right, move on to the next question.
I love when I came to interview for this job, the very first thing they did is just drive me around the city and tell me about Memphis, and then drive me here at Sycamore View and drive me around the neighborhood and tell me about ways that we're in the neighborhood. And I just remember the biggest thing I walked away from is just how Sycamore View is trying to be a bridge between our city and the suburbs and try to be a place where people can gather, rich and poor, white and black, like just different, coming from different experiences, to be a place, because we are kind of set in a little bit of the middle from the city
We really
to the
are.
suburbs, and so it's a place where people can meet together.
And I've got to interrupt you here because
go for it.
I just thought about something, and the way my mind works is I thought about this driving in. To be a part of the community, you've got to be in the community. You can sit and talk about it in a meeting and come up with some really cool plans, but it's really boots on the ground. And I want to go back to Don Stevens, who was our first involvement minister at this church. He passed away from a tragic hunting accident. And a lot of the older folks still remember Don. And people would come to me and say, you remind me of Don. Well, I found out later that was like a huge compliment because he was a people person and he was out in the community. At a community barbecue that he had at his house, he and his wife Regina, these new neighbors came up and they were just cooking a hot dog. And what do you do for a living? Well, he was the new warden at the federal prison down the street. And so through Don, through his neighbor, we started the prison ministry that lasted forever. Caroline's grandmother was part of that, Caroline. And the fireman policeman's breakfast was because of Don Stevens out in the community, being a part of the community. And that's continued on. And because of that, we have the graduations here.
Yeah.
We got involved in the prison ministry and the fire and the police. And then later on, Josh had met the director through Parsons, and we met him, and I asked a question at our staff lunch with the chief of police at the time, Chief Rollins. What can we do to help you? He said, go to our precincts and pray. So Appling Farms is our precinct, and I would go by there before work and meet with roll call and pray over the men and women about to go out on the streets. And then you become a chaplain. I went to chaplain school, and I still remain a chaplain for the Memphis Police Department. But it's being out in the community, and I'm just telling you, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
And so people can't see this, but I brought you a candle.
Okay.
And I brought you a candle.
Oh.
And they're kind of seasonal.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Christmas and pumpkin-y. But
I love
how
pumpkin
come you
candles.
smell pumpkins?
I mean, that's one of my favorite scents. So.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I learned this the hard way. People would come into our office when we started getting involved with the community, and they stunk. I mean, their physical smell.
Yeah.
And so when they would come in for help, I was the one that was supposed to talk to them. Well, Mark's here. He'll talk to you. And it wasn't people pushing them off. They could have done it too, but that was part of my job.
Yeah.
When they came in my office, when they left, the smell didn't leave.
Yeah.
So I went down to the local Walgreens, and they had these 2 for $10 or whatever. I started buying them on sale, and I had a whole cabinet of candles. And so when they would leave, I would light a candle.
Yeah.
And every time I light a candle, I think about when we deal with people and all the stuff that goes along with them, it kind of stinks.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus did. And so I brought you this as a gift, but I wanted to remind myself that really dealing with people is messy. And that's why it's very easy not to do that.
Yeah.
And when you do it, you can't kind of do it. You got to be all in.
Yeah.
And once you're all in, it gets crazy.
Yes, we have, I mean, on a regular basis, people just walking up. Because our street now, I mean, there's a lot of homeless population here and a lot of drug use and different things. And Kim Chapman and so many people do a lot with the people that walk up. But
I got in
you have a to-do list that you were trying to get done that day. And it gets totally you just have to do what people need. And that's,
I got in trouble
really good
here
reminder.
one time from some of the staff. They said, Mark, you are taking some crazy chances. A guy came in, he was on meth really, really bad. He was sweating, scratching, all the signs of being really, really high. And he wanted to ride. And I remember right there when you walk in the office where Donna sits, I had him spread his legs and put his hands up against the wall, and I patted him down. I said, let's go.
Yeah.
Before you get in the truck with me, because I didn't know this guy.
Yeah.
Then story after story behind McDonald's, where a lot of population lives in the tents, washed their clothes, took them back to them, walked through the grass at night, leaving an elders meeting to walk through there. I remember going with Josh and Jim. Jim was relatively new. We broke him in. We were going to the med one night after an elders meeting because one of our teenagers had been in a car wreck. And so I said, before we go, let me take these clothes back to these guys down here. So we're walking through the grass, and it was like later at night. And Jim goes, is this okay? And I said, yeah, it's okay. I said, have you ever met a drunk rooster? He said, not that I'm aware of. I said, well, you're about to. Because the head of the camp, his name was Rooster, and he was drunk. And so we heard him. We heard him before we got there, and I yelled out, I say, it's Mark, it's Mark. And Josh and Jim got to meet the homeless population probably for the first time in their homes, in the tents. And it stunk. Yeah. And they were drunk. Yeah. And that's the community all around us. And every church has that kind of close to them, some more than others.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of our church, I just want to say thank you for paving the way and for showing a lot of us on staff how to be. It's truly like incarnational ministry when I think about it. The tough, the dirty, the relationships. You made it all about relationships, and you've opened doors for us by
Thank you.
what you did when you were on staff here, and I'm really thankful
appreciate
for
that.
for that legacy at Shelby Oaks and everywhere that you served. So I'm really thankful for
you.
you and what you did for
Thank
our
you.
church. So
Very nice.
yes, yeah. I have one question I'm asking everybody
Okay.
that they come when they come on our podcast, so that we can put together kind of a prayer at the end of these 50 stories of just a short one sentence prayer or hope that you have for Sycamore View as we keep moving forward
Yeah.
in our city, in our community. And yeah, so
I pray that we stay here, but not stay here. What we just talked about.
yeah.
This is our base camp. This is our foundation. A lot of ministry goes on here, but it's all around us.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
It was fun.
Good. I'm sure you have even more stories. We could be up here for a long time. You're such a good storyteller, and I miss that in staff meetings and elders meetings. You always brought the stories and the laughter. So it's just not quite the same without you. But I want to encourage everybody to, like we said, watch the video of Bailey, see pictures that Mark took back in 2005. If you can review, and share this podcast with others that have been at Sycamore View over the years. And join us next month. We're going to talk about the transition from elders to shepherds. So we'll see you then.